Hello again, half-ass off-grid here, coming to you live from the man's room. This is where I keep some of my spare stuff and where I keep all my reloading stuff. So, what we're going to talk about today is the perfect deer cartridge. Been debated for probably hundreds of years, and I'm sure the debate's not going away anytime soon. So I'm going to break it down into a couple of different things. The first thing I'm going to talk about is cartridges that I have seen deer shot with, and then cartridges that I have actually shot deer with myself. And hopefully we'll get a good lively conversation going, and we'll have a ton of comments in the comment section. So here's the cartridges that we're going to be talking about. You can see I have them in their little groups. This is the 2520 Winchester. It develops a whopping 272 foot-pounds of energy at 100 yards, or 535 at the muzzle. Now, to put that into perspective, most people consider 1,000 foot-pounds of energy as the benchmark for humanely shooting a deer with a center fire cartridge. In this next group, we have, from left to right, the 2535 Winchester. It was introduced in 1895, same year as the 2520. We got the 270 Winchester, and it's of the 1923 vintage. And we have the 300 Savage. It was introduced in 1920. These three I have not shot a deer with. I have seen deer shot with all three of them. The 2535, I saw my grandpa shoot a deer in a hayfield, and it was running, and it just seemed to kind of stop running and fall over. It was almost like it didn't even get hit. The 270, my wife currently hunts with, and I have witnessed her shoot 4 deer with it, and I load it with 150 grain ballistic tips, and they're pretty wicked. You get the bullet there, the rest is history. This third one is a 300 Savage. My dad has hunted with it off and on for most of his life, and it's actually the parent cartridge of one of the other cartridges we'll get to here in a second. So out of these three, they're all adequate at 100 yards. The 270 has 1,200 foot-pounds of energy at 400 yards, so your max ethical range, I guess you could say, would be about 400 yards, and the 300 Savage has 1,000 at 300. And of the three, I would say the 270 has the best margin of error. The 300 Savage is nothing to sneeze at. I've seen my dad shoot a half dozen deer with it, and let's just say they don't go far. So here's the third group. You're probably wondering what the 9mm is doing there on the end. We'll get to that in a second. Out of this group, these are the cartridges that I personally have shot deer with. We have the 9mm on the far left, and it has about the same energy as the 2520. It was introduced in 1901, 02, something like that. And it's a pistol cartridge, obviously. Then we have the 308, which is a derivative of the 300 Savage, and the 30-06, the 7mm Remington Magnum, and the 300 Win Mag. Out of these, I currently have been hunting most recently with the 308, and I load it with 180 grain boat tails, and it's literally the hammer of God on deer. They don't go anywhere. Have had good luck with the 06. I've had great luck with the 7mm. The 300 I load with 200 grain AccuBonds, and I think the bullet is a little bit tough because it seems to just blow through the deer and just pokes a little hole in them, and they run, 50 to 100 yards. It doesn't have that spectacular drop on sight like the other three. So some of you that have a little experience in this arena probably are noticing that I load a little bit heavier bullets in respect to the caliber, the 200 grain and the 300, the 175 and the 7mm, 180s and the 30 cals, and the 150 ballistic tip and the 270. And that's generally because I like a little more ass to my round, a little more thump. I'm not one of those guys that goes and hunts and shoots deer at 300-400 yards. The longest I have ever shot a deer in my whole life was 200 yards. This year I shot my deer at about 40, and I believe my wife shot hers at about 20. So we just figure that get a lot of bullet there, and it just seems to help out. So that's why I kind of load them a little heavy. I know a lot of people like the trajectory thing and all that, but part of my opinion with a lot of these cartridges and a lot of the things that you see and hear out there is everybody wants to be able to shoot 500 yards. I think that's great if you want to shoot 500 yards. It's my personal opinion that it's easier to teach someone to shoot than it is to teach them to hunt. So, you know, if you can get within 500 yards of a deer, that's great if that's as close as you can get. And if you can get the bullet there, but I'd rather just take that out of the equation and make sure I'm right on top of it so I know the bullet gets there. So to me, it's all about getting a bullet where it needs to be. So the little 9mm. Yeah, it's true. Shot a deer with a 9mm. Shot it in the head. My daughter winged it with a car. But hey, makes for good video. Which brings us to this little 25-20 here. Everybody talks about the biggest gun in the world, and they want, you know, their ultra mag, and want to shoot a half-mile. So I wanted to bring it back to the hunting side of things. This little guy here has probably accounted for a ton of deer over the years. I know that the number 2 Boone and Crockett buck in the world was taken by Dick Jordan with a 25-20. And it was my great-grandpa's favorite elk hunting round, if you can believe that. I was told his theory was, you get up within 25-30 yards, slip it into the boiler room, they don't even know they've been hit. They just go wander off and fall over. So in closing, I hope we get some conversation about this. I'd like to know your experiences, what you think, what works for you, because by all means, I am not the all-knowing. I just simply go off of my own experiences. It was my daughter with a 30-06 harvested deer, and these 2 deer were shot with a 270 and a 308, both just as dead. So, be sure and comment in the bottom, hit like, hit subscribe, and like I say, what's your opinions? What do you guys know? Thanks for watching.